Stop. Listen. Pay attention. Chosen one. This is not background sound you can let pass by. This is a direct interruption placed carefully into your moment because something specific has been unfolding around you and within you. You did not arrive here by accident, and you are not hearing this at random. You have been carrying a quiet pressure that others do not see. Not dramatic, not chaotic, just constant. A weight that shows up as fatigue that sleep does not fully fix, as mental noise that arrives without a clear source, as moments of isolation even when people are present. You stayed functional, but it cost you. You kept moving, but it required effort no one else noticed. There have been days when confusion hovered without explanation. Not confusion about who you are, but about why simple things suddenly felt heavier. Decisions that once came naturally demanded more focus. Your body asked for pauses your schedule did not allow. Your mind stayed alert, even when you tried to rest. None of this made sense in a clean, logical way, and that uncertainty added to the strain. This message is not here to alarm you. It is here to stabilize you. Urgency does not always arrive as panic. Sometimes urgency is quiet, precise, and timely. You reached a point where what you were carrying could no longer remain unnamed. When pressure goes unrecognized, it drains. When it is seen clearly, it releases. You may have wondered if you were simply tired or distracted or losing your edge. You may have questioned whether you were overreacting to ordinary stress. That self-questioning was part of the tension. You sensed something was happening, but you did not yet have language for it. Clarity is coming, but not all at once. What matters now is that you slow your internal pace just enough to hear what is being explained. This is a personal transmission. It is calibrated to your experience, your timing, your internal state. Nothing here is generic, and nothing here requires you to force belief. You stayed standing through something subtle and real. Before you understand it fully, you need to recognize that your steadiness was not accidental. There is a reason this moment is being addressed now. This message is not for everyone who happens to hear it. It narrows as it speaks, and if you are still listening, that narrowing already includes you. This is not about personality, belief, or aspiration. It is about response, about how you reacted when pressure showed up without explanation. You did not collapse when things became unclear. You did not abandon yourself when answers were delayed. You may have felt strain, irritation, or weariness, but you stayed present. That matters. Many people experience discomfort and immediately try to escape it, numb it, or dramatize it. You did something quieter. You endured without fully understanding why you had to. That is the identity being named here. Not heroic, not mystical, functional under strain. You are being addressed as the chosen one because you demonstrated a specific pattern of stability that cannot be faked or adopted on command. It reveals itself only under pressure. What happened involved you directly. It did not occur around you or near you. It moved through your routines, your thoughts, your energy levels. And yet, you did not need to consciously fight it to remain intact. You did not give long speeches to yourself. You did not perform resilience. You simply stayed upright. This is an important distinction. Conscious struggle is loud. It argues with reality. It burns energy quickly. What you demonstrated was unconscious stability. Your system held itself together without constant instruction. Even when you questioned yourself, something deeper did not panic. You may not have felt strong. Strength is rarely felt in real time. It is usually recognized later when you see what did not happen. You did not unravel. You did not lose coherence. You did not abandon your values or your sense of direction, even when motivation dipped. This message removes ambiguity gently but firmly. If you recognize yourself here, it is because you lived it. You were selected by circumstance, not by declaration. Pressure tested you without asking permission, and your internal structure responded without needing to be activated. This is not about being better than others. It is about being built differently. Many people require stability from their environment. You carried yours internally. That difference is subtle until it is tested. You are not being assigned a title. You are being identified by pattern. And once that pattern is seen clearly, the confusion around what you experienced begins to loosen. There is one symptom you will recognize immediately because it stayed with you longer than the others. A low, persistent sense of tension that did not attach itself to a single problem. It was not panic. It was not fear in the obvious sense. It was a background pressure, like your system was braced for something that never fully arrived. You may have judged this sensation as a flaw. You may have told yourself you were overthinking, too sensitive, too alert. You may have tried to reason it away, distract yourself from it, or outwork it. That judgment added friction. What you were feeling was not malfunction. It was signal. When a system is entering transition, it often registers pressure before it registers clarity. The body notices before the mind explains. The emotional layer reacts before language catches up. You were sensing a shift without yet knowing its shape. This is why rest did not fully resolve it. This is why reassurance from others did not land. This is why logic alone could not quiet it. You were not dealing with exhaustion caused by effort alone. You were responding to compression. Something was narrowing your internal space temporarily, and your awareness picked up on it. The mistake many people make is assuming that discomfort always means damage. In reality, discomfort often means adjustment. Muscles ache when they are recalibrating. Attention sharpens when conditions change. You were not breaking down. You were holding alignment under altered conditions. Once this is understood, self-judgment dissolves. You were not weak for feeling it. You were not unstable for noticing it. You were precise. Your system stayed online while adapting. That is not confusion. That is intelligence. Emotional heaviness, mental fog, and physical fatigue often arrive together during periods of internal pressure. They are not independent failures. They are coordinated responses. Your role was not to fix them immediately. Your role was to remain coherent while they passed through. You did that, even on days when patience wore thin, even when clarity felt delayed, even when motivation dipped without a clear reason. You stayed regulated enough to keep your life intact. This reframing matters because it changes how you relate to what you felt. The sensation was not warning you that something was wrong with you. It was informing you that something was happening around you and within you at the same time. Now that this signal is named accurately, you are prepared to understand the deeper structure behind it. What you experienced did not originate inside your imagination. There was real pressure, and it was not random. It was subtle, structured, and timed. Not dramatic enough to force collapse, but consistent enough to test endurance. This kind of pressure does not announce itself loudly. It shows up as interference rather than attack. Small disruptions that accumulate. Slight misalignments. Delays that feel unnecessary. Emotional static that clouds otherwise clear thinking. None of it extreme on its own. All of it coordinated in sequence. The timing matters. This occurred during a period when you were already moving forward in quiet ways. When your internal direction was set even if outward results had not yet caught up. Pressure often intensifies at moments like that, not to stop movement entirely, but to slow it, blur it, or drain momentum. Despite this, you remained functional. You went to work. You kept commitments. You made decisions. You did not shut down. That fact is more important than how you felt while doing it. Many people appear fine until pressure arrives, then lose basic coherence. You did not. The opposition you encountered was not personal in the emotional sense. It was structural. It pressed on your focus, your energy, your sense of timing. It tried to pull your attention inward toward doubt without giving you a specific reason to doubt. That kind of pressure is designed to be confusing. You did not dramatize it. You did not externalize it onto others unnecessarily. You noticed it, questioned it, and kept moving anyway. That response prevented escalation. When pressure meets panic, it multiplies. When it meets steadiness, it stalls. Nothing about this requires supernatural language to be understood. Systems encounter resistance when they approach thresholds. Internal stability is tested when environments shift. You pass through a narrow window of pressure without losing alignment. That is why the intensity now feels different. Not gone, but reduced, diffused. The confrontation phase has already occurred. What remains is understanding. You were not meant to fight what you felt. You were meant to remain intact while it moved through. You did that without instruction, without rehearsal, without recognition. That is what is being revealed now. The pressure you moved through did not arrive as one experience. It expressed itself through several distinct channels, each designed to test a different aspect of your internal structure. Understanding these points now is not about revisiting discomfort. It is about recognizing how consistently you remained regulated across all of them. The first pressure point was doubt. Not loud, not accusatory, subtle doubt. Questions without clear triggers. You did not suddenly stop believing in yourself, but your confidence was asked to explain itself. You replayed decisions. You wondered if timing was off. You questioned whether your pace was correct. What matters is that doubt did not paralyze you. You continued to act even while uncertainty hovered. You did not require perfect clarity to remain functional. The second pressure point was fear, but not fear of catastrophe. Fear of wasted effort. Fear that progress might stall. Fear that you were carrying something longer than necessary. This kind of fear drains energy quietly because it does not demand action. It demands rumination. You felt it, but you did not let it dictate your behavior. You did not abandon direction simply to feel relief. The third pressure point was energy drain. Your body registered it first. Motivation dipped inconsistently. Tasks required more effort than usual. Rest helped, but only partially. This is where many people disengage. They interpret fatigue as a signal to stop entirely. You did not. You adjusted your pace without collapsing your structure. You preserved function even when energy fluctuated. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Not physical isolation, but experiential. You felt alone in what you were carrying because it was difficult to explain without sounding vague. Conversations stayed on the surface while something deeper occupied your attention. This kind of isolation can distort perception. It can make people desperate for validation. You resisted that impulse. You did not overshare. You did not perform distress to be seen. You stayed inwardly anchored. The fifth pressure point was delay, not denial. Delay. Outcomes took longer to materialize. Feedback loops stretched. Progress felt less responsive. Delay tempts people to force movement or abandon patience entirely. You did neither. You continued to prepare internally while allowing timing to unfold. That restraint preserved coherence. Across each category, the same pattern held. You stayed regulated without suppressing awareness. You felt what you felt without letting it govern you. You did not need to label the experience dramatically to justify it. You allowed it to exist without amplifying it. This is where the idea of internal regulation becomes clear. Regulation is not calmness. It is proportional response. You adjusted where adjustment was needed. You rested where rest was appropriate. You thought carefully without spiraling. You maintained routine even when enthusiasm dipped. Nothing here suggests you were unaffected. You were affected. But effect did not equal disruption. Pressure moved through you without dismantling you. That is not common. Each pressure point was an opportunity for fragmentation. Doubt could have eroded confidence. Fear could have accelerated retreat. Fatigue could have triggered shutdown. Isolation could have produced distortion. Delay could have bred impulsivity. None of these took hold. You did not resist aggressively. You did not surrender passively. You stayed present. That middle position requires structure. It requires an internal framework that does not depend on constant reinforcement from the outside. This breakdown matters because it removes mystery. What you experienced was not chaos. It was a sequence. And your response across each point confirms something important about how you are built. You did not need to know what was happening to move through it correctly. Your system already knew how to hold. Now comes the part where understanding replaces strain. Not through revelation, but through review. When you look back at what occurred with a steadier lens, patterns emerge that were invisible while you were inside them. This was not luck. It was not coincidence. It was not a random tough stretch that happened to resolve itself. What stands out is not that pressure appeared, but that coherence remained. When conditions were unstable, you did not become unstable with them. That is the key data point. Notice how little external reinforcement you relied on. You did not need constant reassurance. You did not seek dramatic confirmation. You did not require someone else to hold your emotional center for you. You evaluated internally, adjusted quietly, and kept your structure intact. That is not accidental behavior. It also matters what you did not do. You did not catastrophize. You did not invent narratives to explain discomfort prematurely. You did not assign blame just to feel oriented. You allowed ambiguity to exist without demanding immediate resolution. Most people cannot tolerate that. They rush to explanation because uncertainty feels threatening. You tolerated it without freezing. This is where explanations based on chance fall apart. Chance does not produce consistent regulation across multiple pressure points. Chance does not account for how you maintained values, routines, and judgment under sustained strain. What happened revealed an internal architecture that was already in place. You may now recognize that even when you felt off balance, you still made sound decisions. You still showed up appropriately. You still exercised restraint where impulsivity would have been easier. Those choices were not powered by motivation. They were powered by alignment. There is also clarity in recognizing that nothing external truly stabilized you. Circumstances did not suddenly improve before your state did. Relief followed endurance, not the other way around. That order matters. It confirms that resilience originated within you, not from a change around you. Understanding this removes the temptation to minimize what you lived through. You were not being dramatic. You were navigating something real. At the same time, it removes the need to inflate it. You did not survive because of special intervention. You stayed coherent because your internal systems are integrated. This realization grounds you. It shifts your self-perception from questioning to knowing. Not knowing everything, but knowing enough about how you respond under pressure to trust yourself more fully. What occurred has already concluded in its most intense form. What remains is integration. You are no longer carrying the weight without context. You are now able to see the structure of the experience and your place within it. That clarity prepares you for what comes next, not as a warning, but as orientation. When you compare how you move through this period to how most people respond, under far less pressure. The contrast becomes clear without needing exaggeration. Many individuals fragment quickly when routines are disrupted. Focus slips. Emotions override judgment. Presence narrows into reactivity. You did not follow that pattern. Under comparable strain, most people either accelerate impulsively or withdraw entirely. They rush decisions to escape discomfort, or they disengage to avoid feeling exposed. You did neither. You remained available to your life. You stayed responsive without becoming volatile. That balance is uncommon. This does not make you superior. It makes your internal organization different. Stability under pressure is not a moral achievement. It is a structural one. Some systems are built to rely heavily on external cues to regulate. When those cues falter, so does the system. Yours did not depend on constant reassurance or ideal conditions to function. Consider how many people require clarity before they can act. They need certainty before they move, validation before they commit, emotional calm before they decide. You moved while clarity was incomplete. You acted while energy fluctuated. You decided without demanding perfect conditions. That capacity is rare because it is uncomfortable to develop. You did not numb yourself to get through. You did not inflate confidence artificially. You stayed with reality as it was not as you wished it to be. That presence kept you functional when others would have dissolved into distraction, overanalysis, or avoidance. It is important to name rarity without turning it into ego. Rarity does not mean exceptional destiny. It means low frequency. It means fewer people are built to remain coherent when pressure is ambiguous and prolonged. You are one of those people not because you tried to be, but because your system responded that way naturally. You may not have felt composed. You may not have felt calm. Composure is often invisible from the inside. What matters is outcome. You stayed oriented. You stayed ethical. You stayed capable of judgment. Those are the markers of internal stability. Recognizing this comparison is not meant to separate you from others. It is meant to give you accurate self-knowledge. You now know how you respond when things tighten. You do not collapse. You do not escalate. You hold. That understanding should not inflate you. It should steady you. What you demonstrated was not a momentary surge of strength. It was not something that switched on under stress and will switch off again once things feel easier. What carried you through was already there, operating quietly as your baseline. Your stability did not come from activation. It came from preparation you may not even remember doing. Years of small decisions. Moments when you chose coherence over reaction. Times when you stayed honest with yourself instead of chasing comfort. These layers formed an internal structure that does not announce itself until it is needed. This is why the experience did not feel heroic. Baseline strength rarely does. It feels ordinary while it is happening. It only becomes visible when you notice what failed to break you. You were not pushing beyond your limits. You were operating within a range you had already built. There is no need to frame this in supernatural terms. Nothing possessed you. Nothing took over. Your inner systems are simply mature. They are integrated enough that when pressure applied, they distributed it rather than letting it concentrate and cause collapse. You did not need to be told what to do. You did not need a sudden insight to stabilize you. You did not need an external anchor to hold you steady. Your internal coherence handled the load because it was designed to. This clarification matters because it changes how you relate to future strain. You are not someone who needs to wait for strength to arrive. You are someone who already has it operating quietly beneath awareness. Pressure reveals it. Calm conceals it. You may now recognize that even in ease there is a steady gravity in you. You do not float easily into distraction. You do not swing wildly between extremes. You tend towards center. That tendency is not accidental. It is the result of an inner structure that values continuity over intensity. Lock this identity gently, not as a label you perform, but as a fact you respect. You are someone whose baseline includes resilience, regulation, and coherence. You do not need to prove it. You have already lived it. With that understanding in place, the focus can now shift from explanation to application, from recognition to integration. Now the task is not to stay alert, but to integrate calmly what you understand. Awareness is useful only when it improves how you live, not when it tightens your grip on reality. What you have seen about yourself is meant to simplify your next steps, not complicate them. Begin with rest, but redefine what rest means. Rest is not withdrawal. It is deliberate recovery. You do not need to disappear or disengage from responsibility. You need intervals where your system is not performing, evaluating, or carrying weight for others. Short, consistent pauses matter more than dramatic breaks. Your system recovers through rhythm, not escape. Practice discernment without suspicion. You do not need to scan your environment for pressure or resistance. That phase has passed. Discernment now means noticing where your energy is genuinely required and where it is being pulled unnecessarily. You are allowed to say no without justification. You are allowed to let some things resolve without your involvement. Reinforce boundaries quietly, not through confrontation, but through consistency. You do not need to explain yourself repeatedly. When your actions remain steady, explanations become unnecessary. Boundaries held calmly tend to be respected more than boundaries defended loudly. Exercise patience without passivity. Patience does not mean waiting without movement. It means continuing appropriate action without forcing outcomes. You already demonstrated this capacity. Trust it. Timing will continue to respond to coherence, not urgency. Return your focus to what is immediately in front of you. Integration happens in daily life, not in reflection alone. Simple tasks done with presence recalibrate your system. Routine is not mundane for you. It is stabilizing. It grounds awareness into something usable. Release the need to constantly understand. You do not need to monitor yourself for signs of progress or regression. Over-observation creates unnecessary tension. You function best when attention is applied where it matters, not turned inward endlessly. These are not instructions for vigilance. They are permissions for balance. You do not need to brace yourself for the next challenge. You do not need to stay on edge to remain prepared. Your system has already shown it responds appropriately when pressure appears. Integration is quiet. It feels like normal life regaining depth. It feels like clarity without commentary. It feels like moving forward without needing to narrate each step. Allow that simplicity to return. It is not regression. It is alignment. You are not closing a chapter. You are absorbing it. You can settle now. Not because everything is finished forever, but because what needed to be proven already has been. You are not emerging from this moment fragile or exposed. You are emerging oriented. What matters most is this simple realization: you did not survive by resisting harder. You stayed intact by remaining yourself. Your coherence was the constant. Pressure revealed it. It did not create it. You no longer need to question whether you are built to handle what comes next. You already answered that question through lived experience. Quietly. Without witnesses, without ceremony. That kind of confirmation does not fade. Hold this understanding gently, not as a story you repeat, but as a truth that steadies you when uncertainty returns. You do not need to brace. You do not need to prepare for collapse. Your baseline holds. Let these affirmations land without force. You are steady even when conditions fluctuate. You remain coherent under pressure. You trust your internal structure. Nothing more needs to be added. If this message reflected your experience, mark it for yourself. You can do that simply by leaving the comment code 777 or writing I remember. Not for visibility, for recognition. If you choose to stay connected, subscribe so the next transmission reaches you without effort. There is no urgency in that choice, only alignment. You are not waiting for strength, you are standing on it.